So in the bottom of my parents' pantry, they still have the bottles of water that we would have to use when our water got shut off growing up. Whenever our water would get shut off, we would grab one of these bottles. We'd take them to the stove and heat them up if we needed to bathe. We use them to brush our teeth, to wash our hands, to cook food, whatever we needed water for. This stuff happens all over the country, right? It's happening everywhere. It's an egregious violation of people's human rights, right? Just basic rights to dignity and humanity, right? The idea that, you have to take these steps, right, to ensure that you have water. If it wasn't a mason jar, right, you had folks, hooked up to the water hoses of their neighbors. You would see water hoses cutting across driveways for folks to have water. But by the time I started, elementary school in the kind of early 90s, the last of the white families had moved away out to the suburbs, and my block became, 100% black. My neighborhood was almost 100% black, and we saw a decline in, services from the city, right? Trash pickup became erratic. They no longer plowed the snow when it snowed, and both of them worked, right? And yet, there were still points where they couldn't afford their water. It wasn't until I went to college, moved into the dorms and had white dorm mates and roommates, who would share their stories, and I would share mine. And it became, clear that, man, this wasn't the lived experience of people, outside of my neighborhood or outside of my city. I kind of really realized that there was this lack of diversity in the environmental field. And, it was in that room where I realized all of the people making decisions were middle-aged white men, making decisions for a community that was, predominantly black, brown, and low income. You may not be directly impacted by it, but many folks are benefiting from these inequities, right? When you have places, in particular, black communities and black cities that are subsidizing the rates of white suburbs miles away, lift up the stories of these injustices and inequities, right? And challenge them, right? And it requires some courage and justice to actually speak up against that type of injustice.